It was really bad.
Did you go to see Frank after the race?
No, yes, sorry. I saw, I went to see Frank in the garage just after the race, after the commentary. That's the first thing I've done. Frank and Patrick, they were together, but they did not know at the time. That was just after the race. They did not know exactly what. They were really shocked, but again, they did not want to make any speculation and waiting for that. We only knew from the track to the airport more and more that it was quite serious.
You reflect on the difficult things in your life and extreme emotions, and inevitably, things don't get better in that regard with the process of thought. The pain only increases, and for me, my emotions then were a small fraction of the emotions that I had, when I went to Brazil for his funeral.
All those people in Brazil, for all his fans around the world, he will always be young. Ayrton Senna will always be fast. He'll never be old. He will always be the champion of Brazil and of the world. The grief, even today, may be the greatest statement I can make about what he did. When I meet a Brazilian, soon after that, I have to say, I knew Ayrton Senna, and I interviewed him over 100 times. I was on a cruise in the Nile River, and there were 33 Brazilians on this cruise with my wife and I. And I told one of them that I had interviewed Ayrton Senna 100 times. Sometime during the next week, every one of those Brazilians had to come to me. They had to talk to someone who had talked to Ayrton Senna. They even had to touch someone who had shaken hands with Ayrton Senna. It was like I had known and talked to and touched and shaken hands with God. And they had to do the same through me. These were people who were 8 and 10 years old when Ayrton won his championships. And as children, they were taught that this was one of the greatest men that lived with a Brazilian passport. When you dedicate 15 years to a sport, you're wondering, did you spend those years wisely? And I think I did. And I know Ayrton Senna and I know that Ayrton Senna thought he had. Can you imagine? I mean, I would have loved to see Ayrton with children and grandchildren out on that beach. But can you imagine hearing a news report? Ayrton Senna dies of cancer after a long battle at the age of 50. I don't know. It's in some poetic, unjust way. It was almost fitting that he died in a race car.
Ni siquiera a velocidad de carrera se cometen errores en Tamburello. Debió fallar algo en el coche. Quizá la dirección asistida. Quizá la temperatura de los neumáticos hizo que el coche perdiera adherencia. Siempre será un misterio.
¿Hubo una causa clara? En mi opinión, se rompió la columna de dirección y el coche no se podía controlar. Pero sobre todo fue mortal porque chocó con el ángulo justo para que la barra de suspensión le diera en el casco.
Ayrton tuvo mala suerte. No tenía un solo hueso roto. No tenía moratones. Si esa barra hubiera ido 15 centímetros más arriba o más abajo, habría vuelto andando al paddock.
I was lucky to arrive at the airport half an hour before his plane arrived, and I saw the coffin put onto a fire engine and taken on the road into the city from the airport on a 6 or 8 lane highway where all the traffic was going in one direction, following the fire engine. Vehicles of every kind you can possibly imagine, and it was just extraordinary. And we all followed, many of them with flags and banners and portraits of him taped to the sides of cars and lorries and every kind of vehicle you can imagine, on this high-speed run into the city, past houses and windows filled with people, apartment blocks, flags, banners, over bridges crowded with people, all come out to salute him, and then people queuing when the body was lying in state, people queuing for 7 or 8 hours, children, old people, every kind of person, with a predominance of young people because Brazil's a young country demographically, and young people seem to have a special relationship with him, but old people as well, all kinds of people, queuing for hours and hours and hours just to go past the body and leaving little keepsakes by the coffin. An amazing sight. And then another motorcade up to the cemetery for the funeral. Again with people hanging off every wall and tree and every conceivable surface, and sky filled with helicopters, news helicopters, all kinds of things, and then the jets from the Brazilian Air Force, their equivalent of the Red Arrows, drawing a kind of Senna S in the sky with smoke. Amazing. I went to the funeral of Bob Marley, which was very, very similar, like an entire nation coming out to acknowledge someone who represented them to the world.
Para mí era un ídolo. Representaba lo mejor de Brasil. Te quiero, Senna. Nunca te olvidaré. Los brasileños necesitan comida, educación, salud y un poco de alegría, y esa alegría se ha ido.
Mark, última pregunta.
¿Quién es o ha sido el piloto contra el que más te ha gustado competir en el pasado o en el presente?
Tendría que volver a los años 1978, 1979 y 1980, cuando pilotaba karts. Llegué a Europa por primera vez para competir fuera de Brasil y mi compañero de equipo se llamaba Fullerton. Tenía mucha experiencia y disfrutaba muchísimo conduciendo con él porque era rápido, era constante. Para mí era un piloto muy completo y era pura conducción, pura carrera. No había nada de política, ni dinero de por medio. Era correr de verdad y tengo muy buen recuerdo de eso.
Eletrônico, maracatu atômico.